It was a stormy afternoon when the sound of an engine hummed into the driveway. Elise, a 10-year-old girl with curly brown hair, peeked out the living room window, her wheelchair barely reaching the sill. Her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Carter, exchanged uneasy glances as a tall woman stepped out of a sleek black car. "Is this her?" Elise asked softly, her voice trembling. "Yes, sweetheart," Mrs. Carter replied. "This is Mrs. Nora, your new nanny." The doorbell rang, its chime echoing through the quiet house. Mr. Carter opened the door, and there she stood, Nora, with an air of professionalism and a gentle smile. "Hello, Mr. Carter," she greeted, her voice smooth like honey. "I'm Nora. I'm here to take good care of Elise." Elise looked up at her, studying the woman's kind eyes and warm expression. "Hi," Elise murmured, but as the storm outside grew louder, Elise's heart whispered something strange. "Before we dive into this story, comment below where you're watching from today. And if you enjoy this video, don't forget to subscribe." Nora's footsteps clicked on the wooden floor as she explored the house with Mrs. Carter. "Elise's room is at the end of the hall," Mrs. Carter explained. "She needs help with daily tasks, but she's a bright and creative girl." "I understand," Nora said, her tone calm and confident. She entered Elise's room and immediately noticed the walls covered in colorful drawings, birds, trees, and a bright yellow sun. "Did you make these?" Nora asked, smiling at Elise. "Yes," Elise said shyly, her fingers playing with the hem of her dress. "I like to draw." Nora knelt beside her. "They're beautiful, just like you." For a moment, Elise smiled. But as Nora unpacked her bag, Elise caught sight of something that made her stomach churn, a notebook with the words "Do Not Open" scribbled in bold letters on the front. Something about Nora wasn't quite right, but Elise couldn't figure out what. Elise woke up that night to a strange sound, soft whispers, like someone murmuring in the dark. Her room was bathed in pale moonlight, and the house was silent except for the faint hum of the wind outside. "Nora?" Elise called out, her voice barely above a whisper. No answer. Her heart pounded as she gripped the wheels of her chair and slowly rolled toward the hallway. The whispers grew louder, coming from Nora's room. Elise hesitated outside the slightly open door, peering through the crack. Nora was seated at a small desk, her back to the door. She was writing furiously in her "Do Not Open" notebook, her hand moving so quickly it almost blurred. "It's almost time," she muttered to herself, her tone chilling. Elise froze, her breath caught in her throat. What did she mean by that? The next morning, Nora was all smiles, serving pancakes with syrup as if nothing had happened. "How did you sleep, Elise?" she asked sweetly, her apron tied neatly around her waist. "Fine," Elise lied, avoiding eye contact. Mrs. Carter sipped her coffee, unaware of the tension between them. "Nora, you're such a wonderful help already," she said warmly. "Elise seems so much happier." Nora smiled, but Elise's eyes lingered on her hands, clean, with no sign of the frantic writing from the night before. "Thank you, Mrs. Carter. Elise is a joy to be around," Nora replied, her tone dripping with charm, but as Nora cleared the plates, she glanced at Elise and winked. Elise's stomach flipped. Something was wrong, and she was the only one who could see it. Determined to uncover the truth, Elise waited until Nora went to the store. She wheeled herself quietly down the hallway, stopping at Nora's room. Her heart raced as she pushed the door open and spotted the notebook on the desk. She hesitated, her fingers trembling as she reached for it. The words "Do Not Open" seemed to scream at her, but her curiosity won. She flipped it open, expecting to find harmless notes or schedules. Instead, the pages were filled with strange symbols and diagrams, alongside cryptic phrases like "She's the one" and "The clock is ticking." "What does this mean?" Elise whispered, her voice shaking. Before she could make sense of it, the sound of a car pulling into the driveway made her heart drop. Nora was back. Elise's hands fumbled as she quickly tried to shut the notebook. But the door creaked open before she could. Nora stood there, holding a bag of groceries, her smile frozen in place. "What are you doing, Elise?" Nora asked, her voice calm but cold. Elise's mouth went dry. I just wanted to see." Nora set the groceries down and walked over, her footsteps deliberate. She picked up the notebook and tucked it under her arm. "This is private," she said, her tone sharp now. "You shouldn't be snooping." I am sorry," Elise stammered, her heart pounding. Nora's face softened into a forced smile. "It's okay, sweetheart. Just don't let it happen again, all right?" She crouched down to Elise's level, her eyes piercing. "Some things are better left alone." Elise nodded, but inside, she was more determined than ever to uncover the truth. That evening, Elise tried to tell her parents about the notebook. "Mom, Dad, I think Nora is hiding something," she blurted as they tucked her into bed. Mrs. Carter frowned. "Sweetheart, Nora has been wonderful to you. What makes you think that?" "I saw her writing strange things in a notebook," Elise said. "It didn't look normal." Mr. Carter chuckled, brushing her hair. "Honey, you've always had such a vivid imagination. Nora's just doing her job." "But, no buts, Elise," Mrs. Carter interrupted. "You're lucky to have someone like her. Good night, darling." As the lights went out, Elise felt a knot of frustration in her chest. They didn't believe her. She was on her own. The next day, while Nora was busy in the kitchen, Elise overheard a faint noise coming from the attic. She had never been up there, but the sound piqued her curiosity. Using all her strength, she wheeled herself to the attic door and pulled it open. The air was musty, and faint beams of light filtered through dusty windows. She spotted a trunk in the corner, slightly ajar. Inside, she found a collection of old photographs and papers. One picture caught her attention, a younger version of Nora, standing with a man Elise didn't recognize. They were outside a house that looked eerily familiar. "Why does this house look like ours?" Elise whispered. Suddenly, the attic floor creaked behind her. Elise whipped around to see Nora standing there, her face shadowed. "You shouldn't be here," Nora said, her voice low and menacing. Elise's heart raced as Nora stepped closer, her figure silhouetted against the dim attic light. "I told you, Elise," Nora said softly, though her tone carried an edge. "Some things are better left alone." Elise clutched the photo tighter, her voice shaking. "Why is this house in the picture? Who is this man?" Nora's eyes flicked to the photo for a split second before she snatched it from Elise's hands. "That's none of your concern," she said firmly. "Let's get you back downstairs." Nora guided Elise down the attic steps, her grip on the wheelchair tight. But before she closed the attic door, she paused. "If I were you," Nora whispered, "I'd stay out of places where I don't belong. Accidents happen." The word sent chills down Elise's spine. She didn't trust Nora, and now she was sure, this wasn't just about a job. Elise knew her parents wouldn't believe her without proof. That night, she waited until the house was quiet. She needed another look at Nora's notebook. Rolling her chair silently down the hallway, she paused outside Nora's door. It was slightly ajar, and inside, the soft sound of music played from a radio. Nora was asleep, her head tilted back in a chair, the notebook resting on the bedside table. Elise hesitated, her heart pounding in her chest. "This is my chance," she thought. She pushed the door open slowly, careful not to make a sound. Her fingers brushed the notebook when Nora's eyes fluttered open. "Elise," Nora murmured groggily, her tone heavy with sleep. Elise froze, holding her breath, but Nora closed her eyes again, muttering something unintelligible before sinking back into sleep. Elise grabbed the notebook and wheeled out of the room as fast as she could. Back in her room, Elise flipped through the notebook, her hands trembling. The symbols and phrases were strange, almost otherworldly. But then she found a page with dates, and one was circled in red. "Tomorrow?" Elise whispered. "What happens tomorrow?" She kept reading, her eyes scanning for clues. Another page mentioned something cryptic. "The girl is key. The house holds the answers." Elise didn't understand what it all meant, but she knew one thing for certain, she was in danger, and so was her family. Would they believe her now? Elise barely slept that night. The circled date haunted her thoughts. What did it mean? She stared at the notebook on her lap, its pages a labyrinth of strange phrases and unsettling symbols. The words "the girl is key" echoed in her mind. The next morning, Nora greeted her as usual, her cheery tone and warm smile as unsettling as ever. "Good morning, Elise. Did you sleep well?" Elise shook her head. "Not really." Nora crouched to her level, her smile never faltering. "That's a shame. But don't worry, today's going to be unforgettable." Elise's stomach churned. She wheeled herself to the living room, where her parents sat enjoying their coffee. She had to warn them, but how could she make them believe her? "Mom, Dad, something's wrong with Nora," Elise blurted. Her voice was urgent, her hands clutching the notebook. Mrs. Carter frowned. "Elise, not this again. Nora's been nothing but kind to you." "No, listen." Elise insisted, flipping to the page with the circled date. "Look at this. She wrote that something's happening today." Mr. Carter sighed, his tone patient but dismissive. "Honey, it's just a notebook. Maybe she's planning an outing or something harmless." Elise slammed the notebook shut. "She said the house holds the answers. She's hiding something." "Enough, Elise," Mrs. Carter said firmly. "You're letting your imagination run wild." Tears welled in Elise's eyes as she watched her parents turn away. She was out of options. If they wouldn't help her, she'd have to face Nora on her own. Later that afternoon, Nora left to run errands, giving Elise a small window of opportunity. She decided to search the house again, this time, the basement. The basement was cold and dark, the air heavy with dust. Elise wheeled herself carefully down the ramp her father had installed years ago. Boxes and old furniture crowded the space, but something on the far wall caught her eye, a small door, barely visible behind a pile of crates. Elise's hands trembled as she moved the crates aside. The door was locked, but taped to it was a faded photograph. She gasped. It was the same house from Nora's notebook, but this time, there were children standing in front of it. One of the children looked just like Elise. When Nora returned, Elise was waiting for her, clutching the photograph tightly. "Who are you really?" Elise demanded as Nora stepped through the door. Nora paused, her smile faltering for the first time. "What are you talking about, sweetheart?" "This," Elise shouted, holding up the photo. "Why is this house in the picture? And why is there a girl who looks like me?" Nora's expression darkened. She closed the door quietly, locking it behind her. "You've been busy," she said, her voice icy now. "Tell me the truth." Elise yelled, her voice cracking. Nora stepped closer, her shadow looming over Elise. "You want the truth?" she whispered. "Then be careful what you wish for." Elise gripped the arms of her wheelchair, her pulse quickening. "I'm not afraid of you, Nora," she said, though her voice trembled. Nora crouched to meet her eye level, her smile now chillingly calm. "Fear isn't the problem, Elise. Curiosity is." Elise pointed toward the basement door. "That photo. That door. What are you hiding down there?" Nora's eyes flicked toward the basement and back, her expression tightening. "Some secrets should stay buried," she said softly. "But you're determined, aren't you?" Before Elise could respond, Nora stood abruptly and began walking toward the kitchen. "You're too clever for your own good," she called over her shoulder. "But let's see how clever you are tonight." That evening, Elise couldn't shake the sense of dread that hung over her. Her parents had gone out for dinner, leaving her alone with Nora. Nora was unusually quiet, moving around the house like a shadow. She didn't smile, didn't make small talk, she just watched. Elise waited until Nora disappeared into her room, then made her move. She wheeled herself back to the basement, determined to uncover the truth. The small door from earlier seemed even more ominous now. Elise tried pulling on it, but it wouldn't budge. Then, she noticed something she hadn't before, a small keyhole, almost hidden in the woodwork. "Where's the key?" she whispered to herself. Behind her, the floor creaked. Elise froze, looking for something. Nora's voice cut through the silence, sending shivers down Elise's spine. Elise turned slowly, her heart pounding. Nora stood at the top of the stairs, holding a flashlight that cast sharp shadows across her face. "You don't give up, do you?" Nora said, descending the stairs slowly. Elise tried to sound brave. "I know you're hiding something, and I'm going to find out what." Nora sighed, shaking her head. "You're so much like her," she muttered. "Like who?" Elise demanded. Nora ignored the question and stepped closer. "You think you're ready for the truth, but you're not. Go back upstairs, Elise. Let this go, for your sake." "I won't," Elise said, her voice firm. Nora's lips pressed into a thin line. "Then you've left me no choice," she said, pulling something from her pocket. Elise's eyes widened as Nora revealed a small, glinting key from her pocket. "This key unlocks the door you're so curious about," Nora said, her voice calm but dripping with menace. "But once you see what's inside, there's no going back." Nora moved closer, and Elise's instincts kicked in. She wheeled herself backward, her hands trembling as they gripped the wheels. "Stay away!" Elise yelled, but Nora was quick. With a sudden burst of movement, she lunged toward Elise, grabbing the wheelchair's handle. Elise fought to push away, the wheels screeching against the floor. "I'm not going to hurt you," Nora said through gritted teeth, though her grip tightened. "But I can't let you ruin everything." Elise reached for the notebook still tucked in her lap and swung it at Nora. The unexpected move startled Nora just enough for Elise to break free. She bolted for the stairs, her wheelchair bumping loudly against each step. Elise made it to the living room and locked the basement door behind her. Her hands were shaking as she grabbed her phone and dialed her parents. Pick up," she whispered urgently. After several rings, her mother answered. "Elise? What's wrong?" "Nora!" Elise cried. "She's hiding something in the basement. She tried to stop me." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Honey, calm down," her mother said. Her voice laced with concern. "What happened?" "She said I wasn't ready for the truth," Elise said, her voice cracking. "She has a key, Mom. There's something behind that door." Before her mother could respond, a loud bang echoed through the house. Elise turned to see Nora standing at the basement door, her face a mask of fury. "I have to go." Elise whispered into the phone, dropping it as Nora advanced. "You just don't listen, do you?" Nora said, her voice low and dangerous. Elise backed away, gripping the arms of her wheelchair. "Why are you doing this? What's behind that door?" Nora's expression softened, almost sad. "You don't understand, Elise. I'm trying to protect you." "Protect me from what?" Elise demanded. Nora didn't answer. Instead, she held up the key. "This door, it's not just a door. It's a link to everything you've ever wondered about." Elise's heart raced. "What does that mean?" Nora stepped closer, her voice now a whisper. "It's where your story began." Elise stared at Nora, her heart pounding in her chest. "My story?" she echoed, her voice trembling. Nora nodded slowly, her eyes darkening. "Everything you're about to learn will change everything you think you know about your life. But once you open that door, there's no going back." Elise's mind raced. "What happened to me? What are you hiding from me?" She felt an overwhelming urge to know. To understand. Nora paused, as if debating whether to reveal the truth. "I didn't want you to find out this way," she said, almost to herself. "But you're stronger than I thought. You deserve to know." She stepped forward and held out the key. "Go ahead," Nora whispered, "but be ready." Elise hesitated for a moment. Then, with trembling fingers, she took the key. The metal key felt heavy in Elise's hand, as if it were carrying the weight of years of secrets. She wheeled herself slowly toward the basement door. Each click of the lock echoed in her ears like a countdown. As she turned the key and opened the door, a cold breeze rushed out, carrying with it a musty smell of old wood and forgotten memories. Elise felt a chill run down her spine as she peered into the darkness beyond. "Go ahead," Nora urged softly from behind her. "The answers are in there." Taking a deep breath, Elise rolled forward into the basement. The beam from the flashlight in her hand barely cut through the thick shadows, but something gleamed in the corner of the room. It was a small wooden chest, covered in dust and cobwebs, as if it had been left untouched for years. Elise's hands shook as she approached the chest. It seemed so ordinary, yet she felt as if the air around it pulsed with energy. Her mind raced with questions, but one thought stood out above the rest. What was in the chest? With a deep breath, Elise lifted the lid. Inside was a collection of old papers, photographs, and a small, neatly folded blanket. She picked up the top photograph. It was a picture of a young girl, no older than Elise, sitting in a wheelchair similar to hers. The girl's eyes were wide with fear, and she was holding onto the hand of a woman who looked strangely familiar. Elise. Nora's voice broke the silence, and Elise turned to face her. Who is she? Elise asked, her voice barely a whisper. Nora took a step forward, her expression tight. That's you, she said softly. And the woman beside you is your mother. Elise's heart stopped. That's me. She stared at the photo in disbelief. The girl in the picture looked so much like her. But younger, fragile. But it didn't make sense. Her parents had always told her she was born healthy, that her condition had developed later. Nora nodded. You were different once, Elise. You were normal. And then something happened. Elise could barely breathe. What happened to me? Why don't I remember? Nora's face twisted with pain, and she took a step back, her eyes misting over. It was my fault. Elise blinked, confused. What do you mean, your fault? Nora's voice cracked. I'm the reason you're in that wheelchair. I'm the reason you don't remember. I was trying to protect you from the truth, but now it's too late. The time has come. Elise stared at Nora, her mind spinning. How could you be responsible for my condition? You've been my nanny, but how do you know all of this? Nora closed her eyes for a moment, her hand clutching her chest. When she opened them, the sadness in her eyes was impossible to ignore. You were a different person before. You were full of life. But then something happened to you, something I could never have prepared for. She paused, her voice trembling. It was an accident. You were in the hospital, and I tried to save you from what the doctors couldn't. Elise's mind raced. Save me from what? What happened to me in the hospital? Nora's eyes filled with tears. It was supposed to be temporary. I thought you would forget, but you didn't. The memory stayed with you, and it broke you. Elise's stomach twisted. What memory? Nora's voice dropped to a whisper. The accident. You never forgot the fear, the pain, and I tried to erase it from your mind. I made sure you never remembered what you were before, what you had lost. Elise's mind was a whirlpool of confusion and shock. You erased my memories? She asked, her voice barely audible. But why? Why would you do that to me? Nora swallowed hard, her face filled with regret. Because I thought it would be easier for you to live without remembering. The accident was brutal. The doctors said you'd never walk again. I thought if I could just erase the pain, you'd be happier, we'd all be happier. Elise's eyes welled with tears. You made me forget who I was, who I used to be. I didn't want you to suffer, Nora said quietly, stepping closer. You were in so much pain. I thought if you forgot, you could live a life without remembering how much you lost. But you took away everything, Elise whispered, her hands clenched tightly on her wheelchair. I don't even know who I was before. How could you think that was okay? Nora looked away, her voice shaking. I was trying to protect you. I didn't know what else to do. The weight of Nora's words sank in, leaving Elise with a heavy feeling in her chest. She stared at the picture again, the young girl in the wheelchair, her own face, but filled with joy and innocence. It was a version of her she could never reach. How could you erase my memories like that? Elise demanded, tears welling up in her eyes. I don't even remember what it felt like to walk. I don't know what it was like to run, to play like other kids. Nora's voice cracked as she spoke. I couldn't bear to see you struggle. I couldn't bear the guilt of watching you suffer. I thought I was doing the right thing. But it wasn't right, Elise said, the pain clear in her voice. You took my identity, my past, and for what? So I could live a lie. The room was heavy with silence. Elise could feel the anger and heartbreak bubbling up inside her. Elise's thoughts were racing now, questions flooding her mind. If I was so different, what happened in the accident? Why am I in a wheelchair? Nora paused, her face pale. She seemed to be struggling with whether to continue. The accident was an explosion at the hospital. You were caught in the blast. The doctors did everything they could, but... Her voice faltered. It damaged your spine. You were never supposed to walk again. And I couldn't bear to see you like that. Elisa's heart dropped. The details felt like pieces of a puzzle, but she still couldn't see the full picture. You took my memories, and now all I have left is this broken body. Her voice cracked. I don't even know what my life was like before. I'm sorry, Nora whispered, her face filled with regret. But I had no other choice. I couldn't let you remember the pain. Elise gripped the armrests of her wheelchair, her knuckles turning white. You can't take away someone's past and call it protection. I want to remember. I want to know who I was, what happened to me. Nora's eyes softened, but her expression was still filled with guilt. But Elise, you're not ready. You may think you want to remember, but the truth, it might destroy you. I've already been destroyed, Elise said quietly. You took away my chance to live with the truth. But I need to know who I really am, Nora. I can't go on living a life that isn't mine. There was a long pause, then Nora nodded, her expression resigned. Then you're ready for the truth. With a deep breath, Nora took Elisa's hand and led her back to the basement, where the chest still sat. The papers inside were more than just memories, they were fragments of a life that had been stolen. Elise reached for them, her fingers trembling as she unfolded one of the old letters. The letter was written in her mother's handwriting, and the words were heartbreaking. Our precious girl, we're doing everything we can to bring her back to us. The doctors are hopeful, but the road ahead is long. Please keep her in your prayers. We can't imagine a world without her. Elisa's eyes blurred with tears. She couldn't read anymore. Nora watched Elise, her expression unreadable. I should have told you this earlier, she said softly. But I couldn't bear to see you struggle. When the accident happened, it wasn't just the explosion that took you from us. It was the way your body fought to survive. Elise looked up, confusion clouding her mind. What do you mean? What did my body fight? Nora's voice trembled as she spoke. It wasn't just the physical injuries. Your mind, your memories couldn't process the trauma. You became someone else, someone I didn't recognize. And that's when I made the decision to erase it all. Elisa's thoughts were spinning. So, I wasn't just injured. I was, someone else. Nora nodded. You weren't just physically hurt. You became a different person, emotionally and mentally. And I thought, if I could take that away, you'd have a better chance at a normal life. Elise felt as though her world was crumbling around her. The realization that she hadn't just been physically hurt but had also changed mentally was a blow she wasn't prepared for. She stared at Nora, her mind struggling to comprehend the full extent of what she was saying. So, all this time, the person I thought I was just a version you created for me? Elisa's voice was filled with disbelief. You didn't just erase my memories, you took away who I was. Nora's face twisted with sorrow, and she took a deep breath. I didn't mean to, Elise. I thought I was saving you. I thought I was protecting you from the pain you couldn't handle. But now, I see it was wrong. I should have trusted you to heal in your own time, at your own pace. Elisa's eyes welled with tears. But how do I get back to who I was? If my memories are gone, if I'm not even the same person anymore. Then who am I? Nora stepped closer, her voice soft but filled with regret. I don't have all the answers, Elise. But I can help you find them. Together, we can figure out who you really are. I never wanted to take that away from you. Elise wiped away a tear, shaking her head. I don't even know where to begin. My past feels like a stranger's life. How can I walk forward when I don't even know where I came from? I'll help you remember, Nora promised. We'll look through all of your old things, every photo, every letter, and together, we'll piece together the story of your life. But Elise wasn't sure if that would be enough. The idea of piecing together a fractured past felt daunting. Like trying to fix a broken mirror with the shattered pieces scattered across the floor. How could she ever be whole again? Over the next few days, Elise and Nora combed through the old boxes. Pictures, journals, and even a few forgotten keepsakes started to reveal glimpses of Elise's past. Each object was like a key to unlocking another memory, but the more they found, the more Elise realized how much was still missing. One afternoon, while sorting through an old drawer, Elise came across a crumpled piece of paper with the words hope scribbled across it. It was a letter to herself, dated from the time before the accident. With shaking hands, Elise unfolded it. No matter what happens, remember that you are stronger than you know. Even when life seems unfair, you have the power to fight back. And no matter what, don't ever forget that you are loved. The words sent a chill through her body. It was the voice of a girl she didn't fully recognize but somehow knew deep down. It was her. Elise clutched the letter tightly in her hands, the words echoing in her mind. For the first time since discovering the truth about her memories, something inside her clicked. That's me, Elise whispered. That's the person I was before, the person I was supposed to be. Nora watched her carefully, sensing the shift in Elise's demeanor. You're beginning to remember, aren't you? Elise nodded slowly. I'm not completely there yet, but it's a start. I can feel something inside me, like a connection to that girl who wrote this letter. For the first time, Elise felt a glimmer of hope, hope that maybe, just maybe, she could rebuild the life that had been stolen from her. The days that followed were full of small steps toward rediscovery. Elise took a trip to her old school, where a few teachers still remembered her. They shared stories of her enthusiasm for learning, her love for painting, and how she'd always taken care of others. Each story added a layer to the girl she had once been, and Elise felt a spark of recognition, like a light slowly flickering back on after a long darkness. One teacher, Mrs. Harris, even showed Elise a painting she had done when she was younger, vibrant, full of life, and filled with passion. It was a painting of a woman standing tall, her arms raised to the sky, with the word strength in adversity written underneath. That's you, Mrs. Harris said softly. You were always a fighter. For the first time in years, Elise felt proud of who she was, even though she couldn't yet remember all the details. She was beginning to rebuild her identity, piece by piece, as the weeks passed. Elise's journey of self-discovery continued. With Nora by her side, she revisited old places, met with friends from her past, and uncovered more about herself than she had ever imagined, but not all the discoveries were easy. Some memories brought pain, others were too fragmented to understand fully. The process was slow, and at times, it felt as though she was digging through the ruins of her life without knowing if there would ever be anything solid beneath the rubble. Still, there was progress. Elise was no longer just a shell of a person, she was becoming whole again. One afternoon, Elise was sitting by the window, looking out at the sunset. The sky was painted with shades of orange and pink. A beautiful reminder that life, though unpredictable, still had moments of breathtaking beauty. Nora walked into the room and sat beside her. You've come so far, Elise. I'm proud of you. Elise turned to her, a quiet smile on her face. I couldn't have done it without you. Nora's eyes softened. You're strong. You always have been. I just needed to see that. Elise felt a deep sense of peace settle in her heart. I still have a long way to go, but I think I'm ready now. Ready to face whatever comes next. And for the first time in a long time, Elise felt like she was truly living again, not in the shadows of a forgotten past, but in the light of a future that was her own to shape. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and remember that the pain we go through in life shapes us, but it doesn't have to define us forever. Sometimes, the hardest moments in life are the very things that make us stronger and more resilient. Like the moments of darkness Elise faced, you too can find your way back to light, no matter how far you've drifted. take a moment to reflect. What parts of your story do you still need to rediscover? What fragments of yourself are waiting to be healed? Every day is an opportunity to build yourself back stronger, with more wisdom, more compassion, and more understanding. Remember, you're never too broken to heal, and you're never too far gone to find your way back.